it's a completely open liberal company, but they're just authoritarian, saying if you post anything that's political in this Slack channel, it'll be deleted. And
Hmm.
I'm just against that. It's like that leads to violence of some kind if you stop people from talking. And this is a
Hmm.
channel that they know each other on, so let them talk and engage in it, that kind of thing. And so I say thing, and I was spoken to by my manager once, and then I just told him what my intention is, and he said, yeah, well, that's cool, I I agree with you, but I I wouldn't lie and that kind of stuff, but I'm just loud. And
Yeah,
I just expect other people to be a little louder to just expose things. And one easy way to do this is ask questions. You
sure.
can't be arrested for asking a question. So
Yeah.
just always ask a question. Like, for instance, for anybody who's interviewing a politician, every politician has done something corrupt. At the beginning of the interview, ask them about that. I mean, Pelosi shouldn't be able to speak anywhere without the person interviewing her saying, um, "Tell us about your insider trading."
Yep,
I'm sure that happens, Edward, but it just doesn't get publicized
It
on the
doesn't
media.
happen. It
it
doesn't
does.
happen.
Yeah,
You don't
Okay,
think
then
there's like
send. Well,
I don't
it
know.
should be happening. Well, it should be happening every time. Every time AOC um,
There's
comes
this
anywhere,
yeah. To AOC, it should be what photos did you fake today?
yeah, it's like yeah, I mean, I'm not
yeah,
gonna
she
get
should
into
be asked about that every time, and there should be a list, and people should have access to that list, and anybody that's one thing, but just be a little bit more creative in this, and think civil disobedience. I mean,
yeah.
that's
Hmm.
Martin Luther King Jr., that's what he did, and that,
Mhm.
he
Right.
was killed,
Yeah.
actually. um
That's you gotta be careful. But yeah,
yeah,
I
but
don't know if
it's all
that's
legal.
something. Yeah, yeah. That the thing is, it's like I feel my method, and I like your method as well, as long as it's not lying.
well
And
well
but
it's
just teaching
just
people
the
policy.
It's
yeah,
not so much
but
lying as subversion, is what I'm
Hmm.
hearing.
well,
Okay.
it's the front line. I mean, basically, my policy, like on social media and in life, is if people can have a conversation like this, completely rational. It's argumentation. I mean, argumentative conversation. I
Hmm.
listen to people and will move my opinion based on a good argument. It's okay. If they will not talk, like, and this is like 80-90% of people I know, they just won't have a conversation. I
Hmm.
invited 3 people to this conversation. They aren't here, and
Hmm.
and my former girlfriend I was talking to, I mean, she says she's apathetic and just won't talk about politics and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
what do you do with those people? I
that's what I'm
mean, if they
saying.
won't have a,
If they can't
and
have,
and then they make statements like she said, "You're just one of these people who attacked our capital." Me, what? No, I'm not. But she makes those statements and they go
yeah.
out. It's like, huh? I'm just being smeared. So how do you deal with those people? It's not argumentative conversation because they won't have it. So you have to
Mhm.
be able to, there has to be some way of not being gaslighted and bullshitted like this.
I think
And
they're
so,
low informed voters. They probably just vote in the general elections. They don't know anything else about
yeah,
other.
but how do you change their behavior? And not only them, but especially politicians.
I'll tell
And
you what
I'm
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 doing.
saying there has to be
I can
other
only tell you
tactics.
that. Well, I mean, I use what I do right now with Twitter and what I do with my YouTube channel to put on my Facebook, where I
Mm,
directly have all my family, all my
mm,
friends, and they see me do that and they're like, whoa, you know? And now I have a
mm,
reputation for being a little bit more opinionated. And when I, like, here's a scenario. Like recently, I was putting out some criticism for the Republicans for not passing the PAC Act to support additional health care for the veterans. And then when I
yeah.
talked to some veterans on Facebook, they were like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I go, well, I put the legislation out so that I
Mm,
go, let's go over it. I have a podcast. I'll try to find a vet that disagrees with you. Let's talk about it.
mm,
So when you put that kind of accountability on just regular people, screw the politicians, just regular people, their
mm,
true colors will show too. This was a right-wing veteran trying to say, did you have service? I was like, well, not in the military, but in other places. Yeah. And let's go over the legislation together. And you show me what doesn't seem to fit your mentality, because I'm probably, if I get a little bit bigger, I could find a veteran that disagrees with you. We could talk about it. So, and of course, he didn't respond back to me. He didn't puff his chest out. He just went away.
Right. But yeah, and he goes away. I mean, and that's one thing that has improved my life, is that through this research I was doing for my book. I mean, people who can't talk about this stuff have defriended me, blocked me, left my life, and
Well, all my
they've
conservative family
they've
members see that argument and they're like left wondering, yeah, aren't you going to answer that? So
what do you mean there? I mean,
well, like if you're trying to prove a point and somebody doesn't want to counter it, it kind of just like, it gets interpreted as they lost that debate, or they just don't want to engage because they're afraid of being wrong. So it does put a cloud of doubt in people's ideology when they see that. And they're going to think, well, this is someone I respect. We don't agree politically, but man, he's throwing down some legislation. And why didn't that guy go over it? If he's like so sure that he's right, and this other guy's willing to talk to him, he's super polite, but he didn't engage. So, I mean, I just like talking about the issues, policy, instead of just making theatrics, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, my general approach is more long-term. I don't usually expect to see anything like capitulation or even compromise in most conversations, especially online. But what I try to do is, for example, I get a lot of, not from you guys really, but well, not from you guys at all, but like, the average online person is going to be like, is going to, call you some kind of a name, tell you to go kill yourself, depending what you're talking about. I've gotten the, kind of the range,
Great argument.
And I kind of blow past that and ignore those things and stick to kind of talking about the issue or the idea and try to determine what their real concern is, and be like, I'm not trying to destroy this thing that you're worried about, but here is what I see. So it plants enough of kind of like a seed in their mind that the issue is maybe just a little bit more complex than they give it credit for, so that later it can kind of come back, and they might be able to have a different take in the future, or at least know that it wasn't as simple as their favorite person told them it was.
Yeah, but you're assuming that these people you're talking to are like actual people like us who have opinions and are sincere in their conversations. But I mean, there was
not necessarily.
But there was a number.
You guys are notably different. Like you guys are notably.
That's too bad. Yeah, we're in the 1%. Really, I mean, people
who can hostile. I may have been recently called a nutcase, Edward. Does that ring a bell? But that was. But it might have been to my genre versus me personally.
But I'm glad to be called a nutcase or whatever. I'll just ask people, what do you mean by nutcase? Because
I just moved past it.
Yeah, but I mean, people should ask, what do you mean by that? Because that's a word, and the other person has to define it. And you turn the tables on people when you ask them, what do you mean by that? And they have to then explain it, and then they give all kinds of information about themselves. If they're just trolling, or if they, I mean, I have a very definition of a nutcase, and in terms of a religious nutcase, I just mean somebody who uses their religion to try to manipulate other people. That's a nutcase, and it's my way of infiltrating, or just the people who won't have a conversation about why they do the things they do. You have to have other tactics. Like doing my research for that book, my co-author and I were so vocal that there were two, for over a year, there were two obvious troll accounts, because I would just befriend everybody, for my research project. And there were to obvious troll accounts. They would get into my conversations with my friends and my family and take sides and get my friends and my family to think that I was a right winger and that kind of thing. I mean, it was just fascinating to watch,
Mhm.
and that's part of the online world. And if you can't deal with those people, then y- yeah, I mean, or if you think that everybody is a real person and that they're sincere, that's just too gullible. That's not the way the world is. I mean, there were some
Well,
good Sam Harris uh,
right,
conversations about with people who have uncovered, you know, foreign operatives who run troll farms. And
right, right.
even there's stories you can find about how the Democrats are doing that, the Republicans are doing it, and it
Sure.
just makes sense. Like, and what recently there was, I saw on Twitter this advertisement for a 3D billboard, and it was this violent thing of this half human breaking out of a cage, and
Resident
but
Evil movie.
this is, but there's pedestrians, there's bikes, there's taxis, and they're watching this thing, and it's just dangerous, so I just made that comment,
Right.
and there was one person who just smeared me in the lowest terms, and I mean, it would just make sense that a corporation hires people to do this.
Mhm.
That's their job. They're being paid for it. And it's just good marketing. It's just good PR. So we have to be able to deal with that. This kind of rot.
And I'm
Y-
very ignorant
y-
when it comes to stuff like that because I'm still kind of new to Twitter. I mean, I've been pretty active recently, but I've had an account and I never really engaged in my Twitter account before. And the only thing I would just do on Facebook is post family pictures and just keep in touch with family members when a special
Mhm.
moment happens. But now I'm, with all the politics that are going on, I'm just like, well, if I'm going to go ahead and have some feelings and if I want to promote what I think, I need to be able to
mm,
make a good, coherent case. So if I
mm,
make videos and if I respond to people's memes, I got to make sure I'm clear about what I say. But
mm.
back to what you said, I've seen a lot of behavior on my end
Yeah.
as far as Twitter, some of the tweets with me, and I'm just like, wow, it does seem
Yeah,
suspicious. I'm not
yeah,
used to it.
I just think we have to get to the point where, like, you, James, and I, we can be completely free in our speech, and if I call you a nutcase, or if you call me an intellectual ass, then I'll just ask you, what do you mean by intellectual ass? Do you mean you don't like reading, or and that's probably not the thing. And then you'll say, no, what I mean is that you said this, and that, and that we can get to this level online where we aren't like, if someone calls us some name that we just think is some kind of, troll name, we won't just leave them. We'll just ask them, what do you mean? And so,
Mhm.
and what that causes is that a troll can't get into that conversation and derail it, because we'll just both ask them, what do you mean? And
Right.
and when we find out it's just a troll account, then it gets, dual book tip spam until it
Well,
leaves.
yeah.
I mean, there
I
has to.
I don't think I've gotten too many trolls come at me, but once I identify them, I usually just ignore them. I have kind of a
No,
personal
which
no
I think
block
is,
policy.
yeah,
Yeah.
but which I think is wrong. We should go after them. We have to, because
You want to tease
Trump,
them?
well, because one of them
He
became
wants to feed
president.
the trolls
Because
so they pop.
one of them became president. That's
Mhm.
my
That's a
argument.
good point. That is a
Interesting.
very, gosh, that's basic.
And it's not, and they're not getting up to,
That's
I mean,
true.
yeah, but look at all of the QAnon crap. I mean, that,
Yeah, that's
what
very
QAnon,
true.
and that's just standard now.
Because you're allowing them to have the platform, allowing them to have like the say at the final
Yeah,
say.
and I mean, why can't we be dirty enough to beat them at their own game? And I'm not saying smash in a window. I'm not saying,
Sure,
you
sure,
know,
sure.
hang, threaten to hang the vice president or something. So I mean, that's illegal. But I'm saying just use our savvy, use our wit, and this is why comedians are becoming the best journalists, is that they're finding ways. Who is that other person, Conan Boyle? Um, Not Conan Boyle, but he played. Anyway, he gets like congressmen in interviews and gets them to say, you want
Borat, Borat.
Borak, exactly. And
Yeah.
he gets people, a congressman, to say, okay, gun uh, training for
For a
sixth
little
graders, da, da, da.
three-year-olds.
And
It's,
yeah, but then he keeps
I
going
saw
down.
that.
What about 5-year-olds? What about 4-year-olds?
Wasn't that a
Three-year-olds,
Republican?
then what if a 3-year-old gets a gun? He needs to know how to use it, right? And, oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, well, that would be okay. It just,
That's
and
why I'm a
that's
little bit
comedy.
more
It's that comedy, but then
confined with what
th-
I
there
am.
there should be some kind of shaming there, real shaming, that
Mhm.
makes people not vote for this person because
Yeah.
they're advocating guns for 3-year-olds.
Yeah,
Really?
irresponsible gun ownership. That's Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah. So I
Yep.
mean, at least they're
Mm.
exposing this corruption.
I could back it up with
Well,
receipts.
I
I'm in
understand kind
Texas.
of I understand kind of what you're getting at, Edward, but for me, my overall goal um, is different. And on occasion, what has looked like a troll when when I've kind of given them an opportunity and I've ignored their kind of the trollish part of their comment and stuck to the idea, I've turned around and had a couple of some real conversations with people.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, that happens.
so if I were to have trolled them back though, or if I had intentionally used a subversive tactic, I would have lost that opportunity.
Sure.
Um,
Well, it
my
depends. Yeah, but it depends how you do it. I mean, there's tactics that I've learned, and one is to give them book tips. And
Mhm.
if they say, how much coke do you have you snorted before you posted that? Say, just completely um, um, you know disconnected. Say, I think you may have a point. Yuval Harari argued that in the book *Sapiens*, and then and the thing is that a real troll who gets 3 of those will just leave. And one troll even started to beg me not to send this stuff.
Right.
It's
Wow,
really,
that's I
but
guess that's a valid
but
point.
some people, I mean, 2 of my books behind me are
Mhm.
from trolls.
Yeah.
One is one person was reading a history of Alexander the Great and his father, Philip II. I mean, it's like fantastic. I looked at it at Amazon and it's an interesting book, my kind of book. I bought it. So, but the other trolls I've done something with. I haven't just ignored them because then they just go rot other conversations.
That's
I'm
actually
just
pretty
saying
interesting.
if we
Um,
all do this,
yeah.
then they don't have any place to go. And if we would all just, it doesn't have to be going to a rally and actually, getting in there, because in a Trump rally, you could be injured. People have been, but everybody has their own risk levels. But I mean, just
So your
uh,
tactic is kind of feed the trolls fruits and vegetables.
That's
well,
actually a good way to make a healthy
yeah, yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, or just have some. I just see people stopping, saying,
Yeah.
"I only have intellectual conversations, and if nobody can have an intellectual conversation, I block them immediately." Well,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
you look
that's
like
what's
an
ruining the.
elitist mentality if you did that route
Right.
too.
Yeah,
Right.
but most people do that, I think, and I think even that's what you were saying, James, right? You block them, and that sounds good
No,
in
no, I
our
don't block
society.
them. I ignore them, but I have a
Okay.
no block policy. I don't believe in
Ah,
blocking.
cool. I've
I
never heard
hate when
anybody.
people block.
I've never heard anybody who said that. Excellent.
It's
I also have a no block policy. Cool. Yeah.
it's the
We
one thing
should
that
have a no block policy.
I tend to like Zuby, but to Emiliano's point, he's gotten block happy lately, and I don't like that.
Because
Yeah.
he's authoritarian. He
Yeah.
doesn't like
That
criticism.
is, look,
I
guys, I
don't
mean,
agree with
blocking,
that, but I do agree that his block policy is ridiculous.
but blocking is like just it pulls out this this desire to be fascist, right? I mean, that's what fascists do. They block in their society. I mean, if you
No
have a society,
criticism. Obey.
if you have a group that you control, which, like, Mussolini did or Stalin did, and somebody says something you don't like, you block them. That's what they did. And there's various ways to block them. And that's what these companies have given to us is, and they even advertise it as, we have a block policy. All you have to do is click a button. It's just a button and they're gone, you know? And it's just what I saw. I mean, my family members family
Yeah.
members that I've lived with my whole life would say, if you say that again, you're gone. I'm
Yeah.
defriending you. It's like, what have these companies tapped into in us?
Well, like with
Gee,
that Zuby conference, I mean, he was encouraging debate and all that. So he expected all those people that were watching to do all the work while he
uh-huh.
blocks people. And I just thought that was so hypocritical. And I was
No,
like,
this.
I was like, how can you tell all of them you got to go out there and don't back down from the truth? I'm like, okay, what do
Well,
you
I mean,
do?
that's exactly that is what happened with my co-author. I mean, we were writing a book. The working title was Raising the Intellectual and Ethical Bar of the United States. Okay.
Mm,
And he would block people. He ended up blocking me. And the last conference call that I had with him, he just said, you know, your level of criticism is causing fights in my family. I can't get sleep. I can't work on this anymore. It's like,
that's a little
this
crazy.
level of criticism, you're the author of this book. That's and so that's why, okay, I'm a developer. That's where I spend most of my time, fascinating. But I want to spend 5% of my time with this and just integrate it into my life because it's just fascinating. And people who leave your life in real and in online, offline, they're replaced by more interesting people. So it's like it's and it's there's a name for this. It was do you guys remember when MP3s came out?
Mhm.
Yeah.
The name was coined then, I think, where you get some kind of system that people organize their MP3s for themselves. It was for their own use, but
Mhm.
this was then online. And so you just had these companies that where people were organizing their own music, and it just created a it just did work for the company. And they had these huge collections of music where they knew which was the best music. It was
Mhm.
just, it was just free work, and we have to find things like that where there are rules um, that benefit you, you know, and being critical the way I am and never blocking like James and I both do, great to learn that. um, it improves your life because anybody can always come to you and talk to you, but if they're too corrupt to talk to you, if they have too many contradictions in their mind, if they can't be fair, then they'll get out of your life and they'll be replaced by people who are more honest and fair. And so it's good for everybody. And so you do it for yourself, but that also will reduce corruption in society or in any group, in a company, in a family, in schools, that kind of thing.
Well, that's like my whole argument when I say when I'm on the left, what improves your life the most?
Mm,
So when I do, fight criticism against people that I feel that are in my interests, and when I say my interests, I advocate for more good for more people because what happens to somebody else will affect me one way or another.
hmm,
So it's always really curious to see when people just downplay any momentum toward a left leaning solution like for Medicare for all. I mean, if you vote for Trump, you're not helping the momentum for that. If you're voting for a Republican, you're not going to help the momentum for addressing poverty
hmm.
because they're more incentivized by the private industry. I mean, the private sector, it's just their motivation is profit. Uh, so that's the reason why I claim to be a leftist, and I get criticized from people that are in the on the electoral left side, like the Jimmy Dore fans. But I'm like, what? How are you helping the momentum if you're not taking part in local
Mm,
elections and state elections and all that? So that's the
mm.
questions I've had, and I haven't had one unelectoral leftist articulate a good reason about that.
Yeah,
So I'm always
yeah.
just curious about that.
I would just stop identifying ourselves as leftists or rightists or
Well, I mean,
a
it's
little
a
bit of right,
spectrum.
and stop
It's
referring.
not,
Yeah, but I think if you just abide by that rule, that forces conversations of, well, what policies would you advocate then? I mean, just don't refer to people as left or right. Just
well, how are you going to
say,
give them a sense of reference of like,
well, you can
how
just throw
words,
out
like you
three.
said, words are important. I mean, how are you going to make
I mean,
something that's,
I'm pro great
Mhm.
books. I'm, I'm a, a, a you know,
Well,
I'm
let me ask you a
very
question,
Sure.
Emiliano. Do
pro.
you just not believe any solution exists on the right that should be implemented ever?
Well, I have prioritized things I would like to see. So, I mean, realistically, you're not going to be able to get everything you want on your wish
I
list.
mean, because because what I was going to say is, just stick to policy.
Yeah.
You don't need a
and
frame of
people,
reference. The right,
well,
the policy that you want should speak for itself.
so if I want healthcare,
Mhm.
I'm not allowed to think about which side or give credit to the side that'll give momentum toward that. I mean,
If it's really, if it's, I mean, that will speak for itself, because which politician advocates for it stronger?
well, it wouldn't be the
And-
Republicans. So why would I give credit to them? I mean, why would I say
If
I don't? I
there
want
was
to be
a if there was a
Mhm.
Republican, like if
Mhm.
I ran as a Republican, which I wouldn't, for example, because I'm not, but just supposing that I was,
Mhm.
You're not a Republican.
no.
I'm a Republican.
That's funny.
Funny.
I
Yeah.
registered as Democrat when I registered, and I felt that's more my party. My main concern
Really?
is really the poor. But
Mhm.
in 2016, after Trump got elected, which blew my mind, a lot of things changed in the party and on the left, and there are some things that have gone so far away that I'm like, well, this isn't right anymore
What
either.
changed? What are you referring to?
Yeah. What are you referring to?
There's kind of like a hysteria. There's like, the Trump derangement syndrome that some people throw around.
Yeah.
Like there's this over extreme response. There's like they're overcompensating,
Is that
They're-
online or is that in real life? Because you are in California, so I mean, I'm asking, being genuine about that.
It's both. The it's I'm trying to say, like, for example, 10 years ago, 10 years and back, if Antifa had been running around, politicians on both sides would have kind of, empowered their police forces to shut it down more strongly.
No, Joe
you know,
Biden
Whereas
funded
Antifa's pretty
police
much
more
been,
money. I don't understand that criticism because Joe Biden's not anti-police.
no, but
Not at all. Yeah.
that's not what I mean. What I
Okay.
mean is that Democrat politicians have gone somewhere between denying Antifa is actually a thing more than an idea and a word.
In California, possibly, because I don't think that's relevant in all the
California,
states.
Oregon, Washington,
The strongholds of where a lot of more
you know,
left-leaning
but
extremists would be. That makes
where,
sense. I
the
concede to
power
that.
of the party is,
Hmm.
and so they kind of, and then the
The
other
power of
thing
the
is,
parties in all the metropolitan cities in the United States. I mean, pretty much every
Yeah,
metropolitan city is.
California and New York City kind of set a tone.
Mm.
And then actually with in the wake of the George Floyd riots, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington really also became two kind of hotbeds of left-leaning violence, in terms of that's where the protests most often turned into riots.
Do you think
and
they were
most often
left-leaning
got
or
out of
they were
control.
apolitical people that just wanted to blow up everything?
There's definitely some of those people there as well.
I think the
mean, with
majority of that
those
was
autonomous
apolitical
zones
people.
are anarchists work.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree. I mean, I think there were some Democratic politicians that kind of like added gasoline to
like,
the fire. I will.
before that, Antifa was already running around on the streets and kind of physically assaulting people. And it wasn't getting traction. And then, so that, I mean, that's one element. The other thing is,
But James,
you know,
who's known for more political violence as far as like that's going to be considered a terrorist? Those are right-wing people. They actually.
that's true, but where are why are those events never making it in the news?
They are.
Like,
The
if
guy
you
that-
find the data is supposedly there for them, but
I'll give you an example.
they're almost never in the headlines.
Yeah,
The guy that was in Las Vegas.
But we should just talk about violent people and non-violent
But
people.
wait, hold on. Let me just tell you the other thing on the left that that really kind of gave me a distaste for the Democratic
Was it the woke
Party.
movement?
Is it the what?
The woke movement, or
Woke movement. Yes and no. Not
okay.
some things yes, some things no. Um,
Hmm.
but mostly it's when you're talking about if anything, it's actually the attitude, I guess, around the trans movement.